Hi guys. My court observation was over Rick Flutterman versus Ripley County. And I know a lot of people saw it over the news in 2016. They had just had a hearing set again to bring charges against him for prostitution and for basically knowingly giving somebody HIV, which I thought was crazy and ridiculous. So I'm gonna give you guys first off some background information about the case and how it came about. So basically, Rick Flutterman was the mayor in Batesville, who publicly shared that he was HIV positive in 2016. He didn't disclose he was HIV positive until this past March. But he disclosed the status during a city council meeting, stating that he wanted to break the stigma surrounding HIV and show people that even if you have HIV, that you can still live with it and lead productive lives. He is no longer the mayor to this day of Batesville after that whole scandal happened, but he still sits on the city council board. Flutterman's announcement was met with a lot of support. Everybody was happy, that he was actually trying to do something productive with himself, but there are also people who was very skeptical and negative about it. So I felt the same way. I thought it was very negative. And going into the case, I was trying to be unbiased as I could. Even though I had lived through it, I had actually went to school with his nephew during it. So knowing all the stuff that went down, his wife was my teacher in third grade. So it's kind of hard to see that, especially when we're such in a small town, is very hard to see. I hate this thing. So there are some pictures. The right corner, so on the right bottom corner, that is the guy that Rick Flutterman slept with back in 2016. He has now filed charges, and so did Ripley County. So according to court documents, everything that happened between Rick Flutterman and Randy Wiggle Stevens was mutual. He didn't cry rape, he didn't cry sexual assault. Everything was mutual. The meeting, when they first met, it was in early June, and the message administered by Wiggle Stevens as the mayor laid naked on his own couch. The sexual contact that followed, I guess he administered a massage, and that's how it happened. But 42-year-old Wiggle Stevens claims he only agreed to the massage. Court document sounds, and that the sex happened because the mayor forced him to, which now they have found that it was really just he bribed him. He collected DNA as proof of their encounter just so he could cry rape. He wasn't really crying rape. He was basically saying, look, I'm grabbing proof. And it had also been found while they were going through evidence, and the judge was talking about the evidence and everything, and he was saying how Wiggle Stevens only collected the DNA sample to do that, and then he ended up using it against him for money. So he was technically committing a felony because he was intimidating a witness while the case was originally going on. Both men were arrested originally and charged with... Flutterman was originally charged with patronizing a prostitute, which is a misdemeanor. And Wiggle Stevens was charged with failure to disclose dangerous communicable disease status, which was a felony. So Rick Flutterman didn't know he had that Wiggle Stevens had HIV at the time, and he never disclosed it. So the state felt that he should be charged with intimidation and prostitution, and then also that felony because he didn't disclose that he had HIV, which is very lethal. Wiggle Stevens, his case got heard up in Indy, and Flutterman's, he got charged with patronizing a prostitute. They declared a mistrial the first time, and now the charges were being brought up again just now. So they were both they all were trying to get interviewed by local newspapers. They all said, nope, not happening. But basically, they were all, the police began to, investigate everything, and they were finding basically just, Wiggle Stevens was intimidating him because he was higher in power in Batesville and felt like, I can get money for it. I have HIV, everything works out. Flutterman, he had declared not guilty when the judge asked him if he was going to, basically, does he think he's himself guilty or not guilty? And then the jury ended up finding him guilty, I think, of it. I'm pretty sure. They did find him guilty of it, but it took forever to find him guilty. But they only caught him guilty on the count of the misdemeanor, but they gave him parole instead of actually fully giving him the jail time, which I thought was very crazy. But once they had decided if he was going to get parole, the final outcome was that they ended up giving him 18 months of parole. It was supervised. He basically is allowed to do whatever he wants, as long as he stays in the state of Indiana. Now he is doing in Evansville. He is, being a supportive outreach, which kind of helped him in this case, because he had 3 different witnesses that helped him, which was his now divorced wife, his ex-wife, technically, if you want to be technical. He had 2 people from his office at the time, and they both gave him character witness, gave him basically everything he needed, and then the prosecution really had nothing else evidence-wise, because Wiggle Stevens never really arrived to prove that, he sexually assaulted him, other than the intimidation, which then they had to throw it out of the room for evidence, so they did rule that out of evidence during all this. And basically, I feel like it's not really, I know this isn't really long, but, it's probably because there's so much that happened in 2016, but, the court documents that they found did say that the nurse could not collect a sexual assault kit because the incident happened more than a month before the guy arrived at the hospital. So, basically, Flutterman had ended up calling him, saying the court documents could give him a massage, and that, Flutterman was under the influence. He was now sober when he walked into the thing, but the police brought evidence proving that he was under the influence, and that he sounded drunk during the phone calls, trying to persuade him to come and give him, a massage, but really it was just sex. And Will Stevens was a prostitute. I think he still is. But yeah, so during that whole case, I thought it was very mind-boggling because they went back and forth. And they never really specified what part they were at. So I thought it was very interesting. And that is Rick Flutterman versus Ripley County.